so fresh, looking so fresh. When I walk by, breaking their necks. Waiting in line at the team store. Now I'm feeling fly like a condor. Eyes on me when I walk through the door. Man, I wish I bought a couple more. Cause I really love my city. It was worth every penny. If it were at my show, then I know they gon' tip me. Think I might add a couple patches. If you think it's ugly, you capping. Now my whole outfit matching. Never going out of fashion.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome, episode 655, Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. Ben Fadden with you here on October 28th, 2024, and we got an infield season review for you. Already did catchers, did the pitching staff, so you can check those out if you missed that. But yeah, let's get right into it with the infielders here. Starting off with Luis Arraez, his third consecutive batting title. Obviously, he came over to the Padres. This was not a trade deadline type thing. It was AJ Preller noticing, hey, the Marlins, they suck. Hey, we're trying to go win. We want some more contact. It would be great to have them at the top of the order. Let's go do it. You know, let's not risk another team coming in and acquiring Luis Arraez. Let's just go do it now. And the Padres did it, and Luis Arraez was someone that helped this Padres team get to the postseason. Obviously, you know, if we want to talk about the negatives, it's that he didn't have the postseason that we were hoping for, right? When you have Luis Arraez, you're expecting him, you're wanting him to be that top of the order table setter. And in the 7 games, yes, it's only 7 games, but he hit 226 in those 7 postseason games. That's not Luis Arraez, right? And yes, we have to mention that he had the torn ligament in his left thumb. Of course, that's going to affect him in not a positive way. And I don't even know like how that would feel to be playing with a torn ligament there in your left thumb and have to go up there and hit as a major leaguer. But I don't think we can use that as the sole reason why Luis struggled in the postseason. I don't think that we could use that as an excuse because he played with that since June 28th, I believe, is when he hurt it. He had a 319 average in the regular season since that date. So, again, I just don't think that that should be this excuse of why he didn't perform. Do we know exactly how he was feeling in the moment during the postseason? No. But he has high expectations for himself. And 226 for Luis Arraez, I mean, when you're a contact hitter, you hit for average, you're hitting leadoff, that's not good enough. 226 for someone else in the lineup may be okay. But for Luis Arraez, that can't slide. So hoping that next year, if he is a Padre, hoping that that is going to be better for the 2025 season. The question there is, do the Padres want to pay him, you know, his projected $14 million next season before free agency? Maybe they want to keep him long term, but they don't want to pay him $14 million next year so they can work out an extension. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah, negatively, for me, I was a little bit disappointed in his postseason performance. But there was a lot of positives still, though, having Luis Arraez come over. I think comparing him to Tony Gwynn, I don't want to say that was the lazy thing to do. That was the obvious thing to do, but it also wasn't fair to Luis Arraez because Tony Gwynn is not Luis Arraez. Tony Gwynn is way different than Luis Arraez in terms of what he accomplished and what Luis Arraez has accomplished. You know, Luis Arraez has 3 batting titles. Look how many batting titles Tony Gwynn had. You know, the Silver Sluggers, the consecutive seasons of hitting over 300 and just doing it year in and year out. Luis Arraez, is it great that he's doing this? Yes. But Tony Gwynn obviously had such a large sample size of being able to do it year in and year out. And I know that he was a Padre and Luis Arraez is the Tony Gwynn in this day and age in baseball. But that's just, it feels like it's a I don't want to say it's disrespectful to Tony because Luis Arraez is talented. I'm not saying like this is some nobody that we're comparing Luis and Tony together, but just I want to calm down those comparisons because I mean, if you just go look at Tony, I'm pulling it up right now. Tony Gwynn's baseball reference page, 7 silver sluggers, excuse me. Luis Arraez still needs 5 more batting titles to go to match Tony. And I know Luis Arraez hasn't played obviously as many years as Tony, so it's kind of like Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady in the NFL and all those comparisons. Well, yeah, Mahomes hasn't played as long as Tom, so like we can compare the pace that they're on, but we can't compare Brady to Mahomes right now. Brady's career is over, But yeah, just 15-time All-Star, 5 Gold Gloves, 8 batting titles, 7 Silver Sluggers, and then you go to Luis Arraez in comparison right now, and he has 2 Silver Sluggers, and he has 2 batting titles. Actually, he has 3, but I guess Baseball Reference hasn't updated that yet. Maybe he's going to have a Silver Slugger this year. We'll see. His numbers, by the way, with Miami, he hit 299. With the Padres, hit 318. Had a 744 OPS with us, 719 with Miami. So his numbers actually did increase when he came over to the Padres. But this year was not the year that he had in 2023. He hit 354 in 2023. 3 less games, but still, like that's incredible. He had 203 hits in 2023, 200 hits in the regular season this year. So I'm not saying like, oh, Luis Arraez is already falling off. I'm just saying like and last year, 2023, I'm saying hitting 354, like that feels like an outlier there for Luis Arraez even. So maybe this year was more of a step back into like reality of what Luis Arraez is. It's still a very good contact hitter who I think obviously can still help the Padres next year on offense. I will say defensively in the postseason, and when Kim went down and Bogaerts went to short and Arraez was at first base, him and Solano were sharing time. I thought Luis Arraez stood in there pretty well. I know he's not like the best first baseman ever, but I thought he did fine. I wasn't like sitting there complaining like, oh, this is the reason why the Padres lost games. And so overall, I think it was a positive year. It was kind of like the Padres in general this year, right? Like overall, positive, step in the right direction. It was great to have Luis Arraez be a Padre, but it was a disappointing end. It was a disappointing end to Luis Arraez's season because he didn't do in the postseason what he did in the larger sample size in the regular season, right? In terms of average, he'd probably say he didn't get on base enough for his team in the postseason. So that's what was disappointing. But hopefully the Padres find a way to keep him on the team because I do think that he provides value there at the top. I do see some people that think that, trade Luis Arraez, get something back, have Jerks and Profar go lead off. And I don't think Profar leading off would be the worst thing, but I realize what Luis Arraez brings to the team with his bat and at the top of the order and how many times he can get on base. And again, we got to compare like how much weight should we put on the 7 games compared to the larger sample size of what he's been able to do over the last 3 years in particular with the 3 batting titles, but really his whole career in his bat to ball skills. Should we outweigh that with the 7 postseason games and just be like, oh, he's not a postseason performer. Oh, he's different in the postseason. I'm not so sure that's fair to Luis Arraez. So those are my thoughts there on Luis. Moving on to the next one here, Jake Cronenworth. I thought it was a step back in the right direction for him. 241 average, 155 games, 2.1 FWAR, 324 on base, 105 weighted runs created plus, 72 runs scored, 83 ribbies, 17 home runs. he wasn't whiffing a bunch. I'm just looking at his baseball savant page here, not chasing a bunch, but he still wasn't hitting a bunch of balls hard based on the hard hit rate on baseball savant. I think this is a little unfair because a lot of his games are at first base. It says his arm strength was in the 15th percentile. But what if he had more opportunities to show off the arm, you know? But positives from this season. He needed a bounce back from 2023, obviously. 23 was obviously the step in the wrong direction, and this contract was not looking good. And there will be Padres fans that will still say, yeah, the contract isn't good and it doesn't look good. And I get it. In the postseason, he was underwhelming. Totally understand that. But he still took the step in the right direction, back to where we wanted to be for 2025 now. We're talking about the future. And we know guys, I mean, salaries keep going up and up and up. And so I'm not saying the Padres saved money with that extension, but I don't think it's as egregious as maybe some people think about how much they're paying Jake per year, which is what, like around 11 mil, I think. And yeah, he's under contract for how many more years? Through 2030. So we still have got 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. We got 6 more years, and he's 30. So obviously, you know, a lot of people think that once you're over 30, once you get to 30, it starts trending in the wrong direction, and it was already trending in the wrong direction. You know, offensively, numbers wise, last year heading into this year, 2024, before he was 30. So how can we have any optimism, Ben, about the future of Jake Cronenworth? And I'll say, I'm pretty sure I said this last year, like, I know he's going to put the work in. I know this guy cares. And I still believe in Jake that he can provide value to this team. We saw that he provided value defensively. And I know you don't pay someone a 7-year contract extension just for his defense. I get it. But there were still some positive signs in that regular season. He still needs to be better, though. I'm not going to act like everything was all great from Jake Cronenworth. It wasn't. In the postseason, he needed to be way better than what he was. He went 3 for 22. No runs driven in those 7 postseason games. 0 for 10 in games 1, 2, and 5 of the NLDS. Obviously, they lost game 1 and they lost game 5. When you're Jake Cronenworth and you're getting paid that money, the big extension, and you're in that middle of that lineup, like, you got to produce. You got to be better. And I was really encouraged by what I saw in the first half of the season from Jake. He had the 753 OPS. He had 13 home runs, 19 doubles, 92 hits, almost 50 runs scored. We were seeing it. But then in the second half, yes, a lot less games, 61 games in the second half. His batting average slipped to 215. His OPS slipped to 650. His on base actually increased somehow to 326, not 322, which is what it was in the first half. But clearly the numbers were not as good, and he took a step back in that second half. So what I want from Jake is more consistency there. And to me, I want the quality of at-bats to be better, especially in the postseason. Because, and this is one at-bat, but it sticks out to me. It's always going to stick out to me when we're talking about game 5 of that division series, where maybe try to get something going. Have a good at-bat. Get on base. And he watches 2 pitches pretty much down the middle, and then that third strike, it's a ball that's at his head, and he swings at. And swings and misses, obviously. And it's like, all right, that's kind of, I feel like that's a little bit of what Aaron Judge is doing right now. Not saying that he's watching pitches down the middle, but, and he said this post game, I think after game 2 of that World Series, trying to do not letting it come to him. Like he's trying to force things. He sees guys on base, trying to force things. With Croney, I feel like sometimes he's trying to force things instead of let it come to him. And be prepared for that opportunity when it does come to him. When you do get a pitch to hit, go capitalize on it. Don't not capitalize and watch it. And then later in the count, then you go fishing for something. And that's where you can just compound the issue and get into more trouble. So hopefully I don't want to make it seem, I don't want to make a blanket statement and be like his quality at bats all year were bad. I don't think that's the case. I usually like the at bats that he takes. But in the postseason, I do think it could have been a little bit better. And I mean, it's a results-based business, as Don and Mud like to say in the booth. And the results were not good enough again in 2024. Now, the question of what's Jake Cronenworth's future for the Padres? I see some people on social media continuing to say they got to get rid of him. Same thing with Xander Bogaerts, who we'll get to. And it's like, do you guys not understand the contract situation? He's not going anywhere. The contract that he's under, one, I think he has a partial no trade list, so that doesn't help. And two, how many teams are willing to take on the contract of someone that has 6 years left who hasn't lived up to the contract since signing it? And he's 30, again, with 6 more years to go, with over $10 million a year, I believe, that they're paying him. I don't think there's going to be many teams that are willing to take that on. And it's not like the Padres would be sweetening a pot for that team and give them one of those top prospects, because DeVries isn't going anywhere and Salas isn't going anywhere. And Lesko and Snelling were already dealt. Martorella was already dealt. Marcy was already dealt. Merrill's not going anywhere. So sweetening the pot, I mean, what is there to sweeten the pot with? I'm sure if there's someone that, pays attention more to the Padres minor league system, you could tell me. But to me, I'm not even thinking about a Cronenworth trade. Definitely not Xander. That's just not happening. You can wish it all you want, but that's not, and I'm not saying I am wishing it, because I still think there's something there with Xander. Call me crazy, but I still think there's something there. I want to see him healthy. I do think that Victor Rodriguez this year had a positive effect on this offense. And I wonder what Victor Rodriguez's relationship is with Croney, and how did Victor Rodriguez help Croney this year offensively? Was it Croney working in the off season and then he comes in and he was better? I just wonder, why was he better in the first half and then it slipped in the second half and then he didn't really do anything in the postseason? I wonder what Croney would say. What, because I'm sure he's done self-reflection since the DS. What do you think happened there, Croney, where things just weren't able to be consistent? And I get it. It's a long season. And I'm not trying to make it sound like this is the easiest thing in the world to do. It's probably the hardest thing to do, to be a big league hitter. But especially with all the information that the opponent has nowadays, right? And the scouting reports and the video, right? I mean, I'm seeing all these guys on iPads during the game. I'm not a big fan of that, to be quite honest. I know that the players, they want to utilize everything that's at their disposal. But for me, I like, and this is totally off topic, but I would like baseball to just be baseball. You can watch video all you want before, but during the game, no video, no iPads, watch the game. Make it about that game, not about your previous at-bat or an at-bat you had a month ago against a certain pitcher coming in. I'm not saying you can't have numbers. The hitting coach can have numbers up there. That the manager, pitching coach can have numbers to decide what the best matchup is. But have your preparation done before the game, or put it on notes on a piece of paper. But I just don't like them looking at the iPads during the. I like all the people locked in on the baseball. Maybe that's an old man take. I'm not old, but maybe that's an old man take. But that's just me. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if there's any adjustments that Croney's going to make. Didn't he make? I'm kind of blanking on if he did make an adjustment. Going into the year, I thought he made an adjustment. didn't he make an adjustment on where his hands were in the box? Like preload? I thought that's what he did. Maybe I'll look at the video and see, like, did he stick with that adjustment the entire year? But yeah, I mean, just to sum it up in like one sentence for Crony, it was a step back in the right direction, but still overall he needs to be better, and he's not living up, hasn't lived up, as much as I love him, hasn't lived up to that contract that he signed. And he'd probably be the first one to acknowledge that, and he's accountable. He's not someone that's not accountable, but I think of someone like Xander Bogaerts, I think of Crony, I think of Musgrove, I think of guys like those are guys that are accountable. They'll tell you when they suck, and they'll tell you, like, what do you want me to say? It's freaking frustrating. You know, it sucks. They'll tell you that. They'll tell the media that. So I know they want it. Not questioning that. It's just frustrating, especially some of those postseason at bats. It was frustrating watching Jake in some of those at bats. But I mean, and there's some guys. Bogaerts is one of them. Crony's one of them. Where what options do the Padres have? They're locked in. They've got to play those guys and hope that those guys can stay healthy and be the Xander of old, be the Crony of old, where they come back and they have better, more consistent seasons. So that's what I've got on Crony. Let's move to Xander Bogaerts because we're talking about him. His second season in San Diego. 111 games. Obviously, it was shortened because of the injury. 264 average, 95 weighted runs created plus, 100, I believe, is league average, so below average there. 50 runs scored, 44 ribbies, 11 home runs. And when I tell you 11 home runs, like, you're going to think that's not good enough, right? You sign someone to a $280 million contract, and he's hitting 11 home runs. Wasn't there a span of time where he hit 2 home runs in like a month plus? I want to say that's what was happening at some point during this regular season. There was not that power there. And even if he's not going to have the power, he hasn't gotten back to being the 300 plus average guy that he hit for in 3 of his last 4 years with the Boston Red Sox. So that's been frustrating. He'd probably say that. And what also has been frustrating are the injuries. Because, and I've said this already, I think this offseason, I want to see a Xander Bogaerts healthy. I know that there's other teams that weren't going to be giving Xander 280, but they still would have paid him a good amount of money, a lot of money. Why is that? Because he was a special player. I want to see that with the Padres. He's had streaks of it right out of the gate in 2023. There was special there. He came off the IL this year. There was special there. I'm trying to find the stat here. His first 30 games back this year. Hit 358. Final 62 games of the year. 292 average. Almost drove in 30 runs. So there were some things there where it's like, all right, things are trending back in the right direction. But still overall, I think, and I'm not the only one that thinks this, overall, it's still been disappointing that there's 9 more years on the Xander Bogaerts contract, $280 million contract, and there are the questions about the position that he's going to play, and there are questions about, can he stay healthy, and what can he give? Can he be relied upon in this Padres lineup to be one of the big producers in this Padres lineup? If he's healthy all year, I feel like he can. I still believe in Xander Bogaerts. There may be some that have totally jumped off that boat, but I'm still on it. And maybe I'm going to sink, but I still believe that there's something there with Xander Bogaerts. But reality is reality, and it's a results-based business, like I said earlier. And what matters, the results. The results matter the most. And the results, since he has come to the Padres, have not been good enough for the amount of money that he is making. And that's what fans partly judge the player by. How much money are they making? Right? Jurickson Profar, and we'll get to him in the outfield review, he didn't have the best second half of the season, but he had an amazing first half. He was an all-star. And for the amount of money that he was making, it was an amazing signing. It was the best value signing in baseball. Xander Bogaerts, though, is making $280 million over 11 years, and his OPS plus compared to the league, 8% below league average for this season. And then last year, his OPS was 790. The year before that, it was 833. The year before that, it was 863. The year before that, it was 867. The year before that, it was 939. So every year in the OPS category, every year since 2018, the OPS has decreased. Excuse me. Every year since 2019. Because 2019, it was 939. And since then, every season, it has gone down. 867, 863, 833, 790, and 688. And the number of, to be fair to Xander, he's dealt with injuries. The number of games has fluctuated as well. It has not been consistent there. It's been 155 a couple of times. It's been 144. It's been 111, like it was this year. But with the Red Sox there, he won Silver Sluggers. He was on the MVP ballot, top, what do they do, top 20? Because I'm seeing 13th, 17th, 12th, 9th place finishes. It hasn't been that same guy with the Padres. And so that's been disappointing. Because, and I want to be fair to Xander, the numbers last year, 285 average, 790 OPS, like that's not bad. OPS plus was 17% above league average. It's not bad. It felt like last year was worse than what those numbers were, right? But I think it matters, when are you producing those numbers? Because you can end up having a good season, but for those that watch every game, it still feels like, oh man, he really had those numbers to finish the season? Well, maybe it feels that way because is he producing in the biggest moments? And so I haven't looked at this yet. I have actually, but I need to refresh my memory. In high leverage situations, where is it? Oh, okay. So in 2024, high leverage situations in the regular season, he almost hit 300, hit 290, had a few home runs, 787 OPS. Low leverage, he was actually bad. Medium leverage, his OPS was 50 points down from when it was high leverage. And then low leverage, his OPS was 617 compared to 787 in high leverage. So he was actually better in those high leverage spots. Now, we could go to some other numbers like 2 outs with runners in scoring position, hit 158. Late and close, 275s. His OPS 698, not the best. But so his numbers, his clutch numbers, actually weren't that bad this season. But what about in 2023, let's say? Because I brought up those 2023 numbers about where, you look at the numbers and it's like, that's actually not that bad of a season. Let's see. With runners in scoring position in 2023, he hit 192. 2 outs and runners in scoring position, he hit 177. Late and close, hit 244. High leverage, he hit 183 in 2023. So his numbers were much better in those categories this year. But overall, you look at the numbers and you take his 2023 over what he did in 2024. So the numbers are weird like that. He played 155 games still in 2023. And he was dealing with the wrist stuff. yes, we have to mention the shoulder issue that he dealt with because that obviously impacted his year. He was out for a good period of time there, obviously, and that it messes with your, especially when it seemed like he was really starting to get going. But then I can't really use that as a huge excuse because he comes back and he was one of the Padres' best players in terms of getting on base and the hit streaks, the on base streaks coming out of the gate. So it's sort of like Luis Arraez, where, yeah, you feel for him with the injury, and we have to mention it because it happened, but he still was producing at a level where, all right, let's bring it on come postseason time. Let's be better come postseason time. And I feel like the at least on social media, the two guys that got a lot of flack were Bogey and Crony in the postseason. And Bogaerts in those 7 games, he hit 167, had a 564 OPS. Did have a homer. He drove in 4 runs. He did have a couple of those big hits. But when you get 4 hits in 24 at-bats in the postseason, and what did he go for? Game 5, he went over. Game 4, he did get a hit. He went 1 for 3. But yeah, just overall, and batting average is not everything, but batting average, I think, is more important with Xander Bogaerts than it is for someone like Manny Machado, because Manny will provide you more with power. Bogaerts is closer to Luis Arraez in terms of like hitting characteristics now, right? Than he is to Fernando or Manny with homers, right? So this is another guy where I'm like, he has a track record. I still do believe in him, but I can't sit here and paint like this amazing picture when overall the numbers have been disappointing. I don't think he's lived up to the expectations so far. So hopefully that will change in 2025. I don't really know what to say, if I'm being honest. When it comes to guys that are struggling or it feels like they don't live up to the contract in some years, what do I say in the offseason going into the next year other than we'll see? I don't know what. I know with Crony, I said, like, I want to see some better at bats sometimes. With Bogaerts, I mean, sure, I could say that. I guess I could say that to everyone because not everyone's going to have a good at bat every time out. It's hard. I get it. I don't get it, but I get it. Hopefully, you get what I'm saying there. But yeah, for me, like, I feel like he makes contact. He just doesn't have the power that maybe we were expecting after looking at the numbers of him playing at Fenway with the Red Sox for all those years. And Pecco's obviously different. But yeah. It's pretty much just well, hopefully things will turn around. That's really what I got. And I know that's not great analysis or thoughts, but hey, I'm just a Padres fan talking about these Padre players' seasons. Bogaerts, by the way, that left shoulder fracture, he missed 7+ weeks. But he came back and he was playing well. He was having a high average, all that. And what I will praise him for, because I feel like there was a lot of dumping on him there, what I will praise him for is he was a team player. Was he reluctant? Maybe was he reluctant at the beginning of the year about moving over to second base? Or, I don't know about reluctant being the right word. Maybe he was pissed off about it a little bit because it seemed like, didn't the Padres, they just went to him? They didn't ask him. They went to him and just said, we're moving you to second base. Now, it seems like he was at least outwardly a good participant in that, and he worked hard to be the best second baseman that he could with Kim at shortstop. But Bogey's a competitor, and he's played shortstop, his whole career. Like, the guy doesn't want to go to second base. He wants to be a shortstop, I assume. And then I do remember reading some stuff about him maybe being reluctant to go back to short because he's worked hard to be a good second baseman. Now you're asking me to go back to shortstop? Like, come on. He probably likes that consistency, right? Of knowing where he's going to be, doing the same thing, getting a groove offensively, being at the same spot defensively, and not having to worry too much about that. Maybe that could help you. But then he gets moved back to short, but he still did it. He could have made a bigger fuss about it than he did. So I will applaud him on that. But offensively, obviously you'd like to see more power, but for me, it's just I'd like to see him on base a little bit more. Because I don't want to come in with the unrealistic expectations of, hey, 30 home runs, Xander Bogaerts. Him being that guy. Get on base more. Drive guys in if you're hitting behind Manny. Hitting behind Arraez, Tatis, whoever is in there before you next year, Merrill maybe. Do your job that way. And you could be a really valuable piece to this Padres team. But I think, just these last couple of years, although the numbers won't look terrible in some categories, still, I think if you ask Padres fans, the majority of them would say, like, yeah, it's still been disappointing for Xander. All right, Ha-Seong Kim, he is next, 2.6 F4, under 21 games, 233 average, 101 weighted runs created plus, 11 home runs, 47 runs driven in. Obviously, we know what happened at the end there, and his season gets cut short, dives back into first, torn labrum, ends up having to get surgery. I think he got surgery the same day Musgrove got the TJ surgery. Game 5 of the division series, I think that's when they did that. They did that on the same day. Different spots, different doctors, but I think they did it on the same day there. And now the road to recovery is on for HSK. But will he be in a Padre uniform? I know this is season review, but as Padres fans, that's the big question with Ha-Seong Kim now. It's not as much about reflecting on what he did this year. It's more about what's the future going to look like there. But we can paint the picture. I don't have a ton of positives for this is a downer episode. Man, I'm sorry. It feels like that's what it is. But there's been some infielders that I don't think performed up to expectations. Or maybe our expectations were lower for them, and that's part of a problem. Like, we don't want the expectations to be lower for them. We want them to be high. Realistically high because of how they're performing. Kim, I mean, we were hoping that he was going to keep moving forward, keep getting higher and higher, right? But he took steps back. Obviously, the injury. Now there's the cloud of that over him. The positives are just like the effort, the defense, the base running. Yeah, that could drive you crazy sometimes, but at least the effort was there, and he left it all out there on the field. So, like, he respected us fans that paid to go watch the Padres play. He gave it his all. But there's way more negatives than positives for Ha-Seong Kim in 2024. His average was down, slugging, on base, OPS, weighted runs created plus, all were down from 2023 pretty significantly. And it was to the point where I don't think Padres fans, we were like, oh, if we had Ha-Seong Kim's, things would have been way different in the postseason for us. I didn't see that on social media. I know social media is not the entire fan base, but I didn't see that where I'm like, there was more of like, what if we had Musgrove? More than, well, what if we had Ha-Seong Kim? Maybe things would have been different. The Padres will tell you, like, yeah, he was that was a significant hole to have, or a significant absence to not have Kim there in the lineup. More like in the field. But I think it was actually a good thing offensively. And then in games 4 and 5, they still didn't score. But like offensively, if you think about it, right? Kim stepped back from 2023 offensively. So his injury gave the Padres the opportunity to have the better lineup out there. I'm sorry. Having Ha-Seong Kim in there was not the best Padres lineup. This allowed them to have Luis Arraez and Donovan Solano in the lineup. And Donovan Solano was more impactful offensively than Kim was this year. And David Peralta could be in there if they had Arraez or Solano at first and one of those guys on the bench. And David Peralta, played pretty darn well, really well while Nando was out. And he homered in the division series against the Dodgers. Like, I love the effort that Kim has. I know he's a fan favorite, but I didn't really feel his absence in the postseason. I felt it with Musgrove. I didn't feel it with Ha-Seong Kim. If it was 2023 Kim, yeah, we probably would have felt it more. But that wasn't the case in 2024, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's not here in 2025, if someone else decides to sign him. Jim Bowden in The Athletic did his initial, I think, contract projections, and it was like 1 year, 10 mil for Kim on a pillow contract. Would the Padres do that? Obviously bonuses for like awards and maybe amount of games or at bats, right? Incentives. But would the Padres do that for a guy that's not going to be ready to start the season? They can have Bogaerts play short. They can have Crony play second and have Arraez play first if that's what they want to do. And then we'll see what happens with the bench. They could bring in a shortstop or bring in a second baseman or bring in a first baseman. Have Crony go play second, Bogaerts play short. A power first base bat. We'll see, So if, and they can maybe trade Arraez. Like, there's obviously a lot of possibilities this offseason. Bringing Ha-Seong Kim back, I don't think the Padres would do that for $10 million on a 1-year deal. It's $8 million, I believe. That's the mutual option. I still don't understand why it's a $2 million buyout. If Ha-Seong Kim declines, they still have to give him $2 million. It would make sense if the Padres decline, then Kim, at least gets money from the Padres. But if Kim declines, that doesn't make sense for the Padres to have to give him money. $2 million? That doesn't make sense to me. But that's, I guess, the contract. I don't expect the mutual option to happen. He hired Scott Boras, I think, near the end of the season. So when that happens, I don't get confident in the Padres bringing anyone back who's with the Padres. They don't have Boras. Then they go sign with Scott Boras. Yeah, don't know about that. So we probably, for me, I'm thinking that we've seen the last of Kim with the Padres. The chant, the hustle, like, I loved it. But overall, the ending was, it sucked. It sucked for a couple of reasons, because he had a down year, and also, obviously, you don't want to see anyone get hurt, especially diving back into a bag. And immediately when he went down in Colorado, you knew, okay, this is trouble, because he doesn't really get pissed off like he did there. You see him pissed off, when he makes a dumb mistake or he strikes out. Like, you'll see that, but it was a different level. And when you see that from Kim, it's like, okay, he knows that he's hurt. He knows that he's going to be out for a long time. So that sucked to see. I feel like everything's pointing towards the Giants here for Kim. I mean, it could be the Dodgers for all we know. We know they have a ton of money. And I don't know what Tommy Edmonds' contract situation is. Maybe they want to bring him back, obviously, what he did in the postseason for them so far. NLCS MVP. But Willie Adames would be out there. But what if they don't get Adames? Then would they pivot to Kim? And then they have like Gavin Lux play there until Kim's ready? I don't know. Because there's talent there with Kim. I mean, I think Preller said it in his postseason Zoom. He can run. He can hit. He showed that in 2023. He can hit. He can play defense. He obviously is good in the clubhouse. Like, there's factors that make Ha-Seong Kim appealing, but to give Ha-Seong Kim $10 million, or let's go with the mutual option, give him $8 million for him to play 2/3 of the season, coming off of what he did this year, I think you could spend money better somewhere else. And it seems like the Padres are still going to be limited with the money that they do have to spend this year anyway. So that's what I've got on Kim. Let's move on to Manny Machado. 3.6 F4 this year, 152 games, 275 average, 325 on base, 472 slug, weighted runs created plus 22% above league average, 77 runs, 105 ribbies, and 29 home runs. Almost got to the 30 home run mark in the regular season. He did get that in the postseason, though. Set the Padres' all-time franchise home run record. So congrats to him on that. Obviously, he's going to keep setting the record every time that he homers. Who knows if he's going to have the record? Maybe it'll be Tatis. We'll see. Maybe it'll be Merrill. We'll see. But it was an interesting year for Manny, right? He obviously was dealing with the injuries, not injuries, I should say injuries in total for like the season, because obviously there was multiple things there, but the injury of the elbow, having the elbow surgery, and then having to come back from that, and obviously he started the season not playing third base, and he was DHing, and this is part of the Gold Glove conversation. Like, why was he not a finalist? Well, if you do look at the numbers, I like eye test, especially when I'm watching every game. I'm taking Manny as my third baseman, but I'm biased, I know. But the numbers, it didn't say that he had this great year at third base, and he didn't play as many games there as other guys. He didn't play very many games at third base. He still was able to post for the Padres, but he didn't have the best. And I'll look up his splits here just to be totally accurate here. 120 OPS plus this year. All right. Let's see. First half of the season, 742 OPS, 267 average, 422 slug, 319 on base. Second half of the season, increases in all of those categories. And the OPS was significant. It was more than 100 points. It was what? 134-point increase in OPS from first half to the second half. The average was up to 286. On base was up 333. Slugging was up to 543. That's over an 100-point increase with the slugging. He hit 13 home runs in 91 games in the first half. In 30 fewer games in the second half, he hit 3 more home runs. He hit 16 home runs in the second half after 13 in the first. He drove in more runs in the second half in 30 fewer games than he did in the first half. So this was clearly a different Manny Machado from really June on, because June he had a 900 OPS. The first 2 months is really what screwed him in terms of like not being in the, maybe he would be top 5. I don't think so though. I think that's the first 2 months is really what screwed him for being top 5 MVP, because he was 2022, maybe even better, Manny Machado, the last part of the season. So that was definitely a positive. It was not Manny Machado falling off a cliff or anything like that. He still got years of being a really impactful baseball player, the captain, a leader on this team. His speech to I wish the Padres would have won that series, obviously, because you just want them to win. Like, that's the goal. But also because his speech, game 2 of the division series, after Dodger fans were being idiots and throwing stuff at Padres players, he rallies the team and is a leader there in the dugout And then the Padres go and score what, 8 runs or 6 or 8 runs, whatever it was, in those last 2 innings of Game 2 to go blow out the Dodgers. And if they would have went on and they would have won like every game after that, so they win Game 2, 3, 4, series is over, or they just win the series. Who cares if they win every game after that? They win the series, and then that could have been part of a World Series run. That would have been on all the documentaries. That would have been on the Netflix show, because maybe Netflix wouldn't have done a Padres one because it's not a big market. But if the Padres go on a run and win the World Series, I know there's always the World Series film, so maybe it would have been a part of that, the run up to the World Series, even though I think the World Series film is more on just the World Series. But like Apple TV, they're making a doc, I think, on this Yankees-Dodger World Series. The Manny Machado speech would have been an obvious, like, clear, easy thing to be putting in there. So it sucks that, and that's one of the reasons that sucks, that the Padres were not able to win the division series, because it seemed like that was a powerful moment there in Game 2. So I think as the years go on, every year, he continues to improve at being a leader for this Padres team. Have there been criticisms of him in the past? And I think valid criticisms from what we've heard. We're not in the clubhouse, but from what we've heard, yeah, I think there's been valid criticism. Earlier this year, I got on him for not hustling down the line in New York against the Mets. I didn't like that. But overall this year, considering what he had to go through, I'm still proud of the year that Manny produced in 2024, especially to end that regular season. I thought he was amazing. There's still a lot of red on that baseball savant, and that includes 2 bad months. But he was pissed off. I remember that Phillies series. Kevin Acee had some quotes, and Manny was pissed about how he wasn't doing the job. He wasn't getting it done. And he said something about how he would break something, but he's going to get it to work. He's going to get back to being who he needs to be. That's how much he cares. This guy freaking cares. And pretty much like since that series, he turned it around, and he was right. So if you're not riding with Manny Machado, then get off the Padre bus, I guess, because Manny Machado is the Padres. You don't like him? Don't know what to tell you. There's a lot of fan bases that don't like Manny Machado. I think what we should do, and I know that there's already fans that do this, so like I'm not trying to make a blanket statement, but I do see some that still aren't big fans of Manny. What you should do is be like, it's us against the world. He's our guy. There are those players where everybody else hates that player, but if he's on your team, that fan base, that team loves him. And Manny Machado should be that guy for us. One of those guys. I think Profar is another one, assuming he's with the Padres next year. Or Tatis is one too, I feel like. Where guys do not like him. Fans do not like him. But we love him. We embrace him. He's our guy. And just some of the stuff that happened this year, it made me appreciate Manny Machado more. And yeah, I'm definitely on that Manny boat. So get on it or get off it and don't come back, I guess, with Manny. Yeah, I actually had this stat in my gas lamp article for him. The 32-year-old actually drove in more runs than he did in the second half of his should have been MVP season in 2022. And I still believe that. I will always believe that. He was the real MVP in 2022. But yeah, he drove in 53 runs in the second half this year. 51 in his 2022 should have been MVP second half season. 6 fewer games he played in this second half compared to 2022. So that's how special he was. 16 homers in the final 61 games. Had some amazing defensive moments. I know he didn't play a lot of games defensively, but he had some amazing defensive moments there at third base in 2024 that showed like, yep, he's still one of the elite third basemen in the game. And he would have been a finalist if he would have played there more games and he didn't have to deal with coming back from that elbow surgery. Now, I do have to talk about the negatives. I do have to be fair, like I talked about negatives for all these guys. Obviously, the beginning of the year, not great if we're talking about just results and we take out the outside factors on what he was actually dealing with and you just look at results. Yeah, okay, not great. Uh, the NLDS, games 4 and game 5, 0 for 7 with 3 strikeouts. Got to be better there. When you're Manny Machado and your season's on the line, you got to be better there. Those are the two negatives that stick out to me there. He was not the only one that struggled, though. I know if First Take actually talked about baseball, um, and not just like the big series, because they do this with the NFL with like one regular season game, they make it into this like big topic about this one person, and it's usually the quarterback, right? Um, if it was First Take, they would have taken that series from Manny Machado, those last 2 games, and would have made it into a big thing. Like, is Manny Machado the right guy to lead this Padres team to the World Series? Is he going to prevent the Padres from winning the World Series? Stuff like that. And so, that's not how I'm looking at it, obviously. It was 7 at bats. But that's how some people could look at it, I guess. I mean, Yankees fans, they are not going to be happy with Aaron Judge. Once this series is over, I mean, they're already not, but if he continues to struggle, holy cow. But, there's going to be that criticism when you have the $350 million contract and you're the big guy, you're the leader, you're the captain. That's what it comes with. So, yeah, that was a negative. You got to be better in game 4 and game 5 there, Manny, but just a lot of other guys do too. It was not just Manny. All right, let's get to Solano and Tyler Wade to close this out. Solano, 0.8 F4 in 96 games, 8 home runs, 118 weighted runs created plus, 417 slug. I mean, there were more positives than negatives. He hit 302 against lefties. He hit 352 while DHing, 901 OPS in the DH spot. It was another one of those moves that minor league deal. I don't think a lot of people were talking about it when it happened, but it was an impactful move. Really good move by AJ. Props to him for that. And I'd welcome him back if the money was reasonable. It's someone that seemed like fit in the clubhouse. Good vet, can play multiple spots. Good DH, can come off the bench, and can deliver a nice knock, like he did against the Dodgers. When they were down 5-0, they came back 5-5, bottom 10, bases loaded, 1 out, and he comes through with that hit down the line. 2 strike counts. I saw this tweet from Clark Farenthold. Hopefully, I didn't just botch that name. Sorry, man. But I saw this during the season, end of July. So July 31st is when this tweet came out. So I don't know what he hit on two strike counts the entire season. But at that point, 312 batting average, first in baseball, 339 WOBA, sixth, 124 weighted runs created plus, fourth in baseball. So that seemed like that was one of the pluses from Donovan Solano. And when you can have someone like that can do that type of damage, have that type of production when there's 2 strikes, that's going to help your team win baseball games. So I'd welcome him back. The negative was he went 0 for 11 with 3 strikeouts in 4 of his 5 postseason games that he appeared in. So that was combined 0 for 11, 3 strikeouts. And you want more from him, but you also got to remember, I know expectations can change, but obviously this was a minor league deal. It's a vet. This isn't Manny Machado, right? I think Manny Machado's over is more of a big deal than Donovan Solano's over with with those 4 postseason games. Where's Tyler Wade? Here he is. So Tyler Wade, the numbers aren't going to be great offensively, but that's not really what he's there for. He was there for his speed, his defense, and he provided that. He provided the hustle plays. I remember that regular season game where I think I don't know if he tripled, but there was the ball, the grounder that he beat out at first where he hustled. Then he stole second, and then he scored on a hit, I think, down the line. It's like little things like that where it helps you get through the regular season. He was one of those. There's plenty of those on this Padres team this year where he helped the Padres get through the regular season. And then there was, Brandon Lockridge comes in, and he's more of the pinch runner guy in the postseason. But, Tyler Wade, one more year under contract. He's a useful utility guy. I mean, I just thought of Jose Zokar. He literally just came to my head because I know he's not an infielder, but like that's sort of who I think of when I think of Tyler Wade. Someone that will do anything the team asks, someone that has the speed, and when an everyday guy can't play, Tyler Wade, he's not the worst option to have in the lineup. Not saying you bat him third, obviously, but he can still help you win a baseball game on a Wednesday day game or a Sunday day game, And you got to have that to help you get through the regular season. So that's really what I've got on Tyler Wade. The negatives, I mean, I don't even feel the really need to talk about the negatives because we knew what the negatives are about Tyler Wade. Doesn't really have the power, high PL, high OPS. But if you expected him to do those things, then I think you're just not watching enough baseball. And you just don't really know about Tyler Wade. You don't know who he is, what characteristics he has. Maybe you're mistaking him for another name in the league. That's just not who he is. But I got all the love for Tyler Wade. I feel like he's a really good teammate, team guy. And the Padres can definitely use that again next year, which I believe he's under contract for next year. So those are my infield season reviews. If you have any thoughts, have any reflections on any of these infielders or just the infield group as a whole, I would say the infield is still in a decent spot. It's not the best infield in baseball, but it's not the worst. I'd say at the outfield, well, we'll see if Profar comes back, but I'd say the outfield's in a better spot, but there's also less guys in the outfield than in the infield. But there's still some Hall of Famers in this infield, talent in this infield that can help the Padres in the lineup defensively. I'd like the infield, though, as a whole to be a little bit better in the postseason. I think that's fair. But give me your thoughts in the comments. Shout out to the great partners of the show, Gaglione Bros, famous cheesesteaks and garlic fries. Their main location is on Friars Road. Check them out. Link in the description. Their phone number, the address. I just said some of the stuff that's on their menu. Great lunch, dinner option. They're at Snapdragon Stadium. They're inside Petco Park during the Padres season. Check out Breaking Tea as well. They've got Padres and Aztecs shirts and sweatshirts. Underdog Fantasy. Click the link in the description there. Code Talking Friars. 50% deposit match up to $1,000. You can claim a special pick as well during football season. I know they've had a bunch of promotions as well, almost like free picks for you. So check them out. And today, by the way, it would be a great day to use Underdog because it's the sports, what's it called? Sports Equinox? Let me look that up. It's when all of the major sports in our country, they're playing all on the same day. And this is the one day that is happening this year. We've got Major League Baseball, Game 3 of the World Series, Yankees-Dodgers. We've got the NFL, Steelers-Giants. We've got the NBA, 11 games. Two couple good games, too. Bucks, Celtics, Lakers, Suns. And we've got the NHL. We've got 8 games there. And I did not forget, don't worry, because we got a club coming next year as well. We've got MLS as well. And for me, the true sports equinox is that. Not just the big 4, but MLS as well. There's 2 playoff matches, Cincinnati and NYCFC, and then Seattle hosting Houston. And I've been following that because I want to be more familiar with the league and the players and all that. Be prepared for what's coming next year with SDFC getting underway. And then SeatGeek code Talking Friars. Click the link in the description. Sign up and you will get $20 off your first order. All right. Thank you, everybody, for the time, and see y'all later.